Welcome back once again, everyone. I finally have a little time to sit down and actually make a video. This one today, as you can probably tell, is not going to be One Piece themed. We are going to talk about the new Last of Us show that came out 2 nights ago. I do have a One Piece script coming up. It's kind of a recap of all of Egghead so far, as well as some analysis of the whole thing in general, since I haven't really done an in-depth chapter-to-chapter review or recap or what have you. I'm really excited to get into this, kind of recap everything of Egghead we did in 2022, and then get ready for, chapter 1072, excuse me, coming out this Thursday and Sunday, depending on which translation you end up reading. But without further ado, let's get into it. This new Last of Us show, just to kind of preface real quick, I was a little skeptical of, maybe not doubtful. It's HBO, it's probably going to be good. I was very skeptical of this. Video game adaptations just kind of lose a little something for me here and there. There are exceptions, and this is certainly one of them. I'm going to kind of go through it beat by beat, beginning to end, just kind of give my thoughts in general, casting stuff, story changes, story areas where it stayed true to the story. It was a jam-packed pilot. It was they really could have done 2 episodes almost. It really does feel like a part 1 and then a part 2. Let's just, without further ado, get into it. First of all, and this is not exactly a high point, was this 60s talk show hosted by Big Head, which was crazy. It was really weird to see him right first thing in the Last of Us TV show, and he's not like some blithering doofus kind of figure. He seems pretty competent. Shout out to Big Head for his actor. His name escapes me, but all that being said, all praise to Big Head. I gotta have like a little edited over audio clip of me saying his real name. Josh Brenner. His name is Josh Brenner. All props to him though. I wasn't crazy about this scene. I've been seeing this scene get a lot of praise online about how it really sets up the show well. I'm not saying it should have been included, but for me personally, it felt a little Hollywood to have it here in the front. It felt a little like we were getting geared up for 28 Days Later, which, no hate to that movie. I love that movie. This feels like a bit of an outdated thing that they were relying on, the educated people on the talk show. I did like that it was in the 60s at least, and not the same day that everything happens, or even the same year, or the same decade even, whatever. But overall, missed the mark. I like that there are existing, pretty existing IPs and brands and stuff, like ABC in this scene, and then we're gonna, I'll talk about one here in a bit. Without further ado, let's get into the main meat. You immediately get into Joel and Sarah, who are fundamentally the same as they were in the game. I think a lot of the story arc of the show is going to follow the game storyline. If you've played the first Last of Us, I think we all know what the show is going to be about, how the general twists and turns will be. But we're also getting a little more, we're getting things fleshed out. I loved it here. I love that they fleshed out Joel's birthday here. Kind of took you from Sarah's perspective. She is very much the main character of this first part. She's cooking breakfast. She's, pretty sassy, pretty with it, pretty witty. She's a cool, I love her as Sarah. What was kind of funny is I love her as Sarah. I'm not familiar with the actor. I haven't seen her in anything else. But in this intro bit, I wasn't sold on Joel. I wasn't sold on Pedro Pascal as Joel. By the end of the episode, I think I am. And I'm not sure if it's this general sadness that he's encompassing Pedro Pascal, because he's a fantastic actor. I love him. but something about him in up until 25-minute mark is when, you know, shit kind of really hits the fan in this episode. He just felt like he was already in apocalypse mode, and I was a little nervous, you know, nothing at all with, you know, I don't really want to get into this because I unequivocally love the show. If I see anybody have this fucking stance, I don't give a shit that, you know, they're playing with what races Joel and Sarah are. Whatever, you know, like if they got the chops, they got the chops. It'll take the story in a different direction maybe, and even if it doesn't, or even if it does and that's a good thing, it's not going to move the story in another direction is what I meant to say. It's not going to be something that should ruin your experience. If it does, you probably need to do some soul searching. I'm strictly talking about Pedro Pascal as Joel. In the game, he had this playfulness, which there is a little bit of that with the old folks who live next door and the old lady they take care of. There is a little bit of that where he's like, you know, my daughter Sarah will come play, but I'm on the Atkins. I love that scene. That was really funny. Um, Tommy though, I don't know where they got this guy. I think I've seen him. I think he is from like a bunch of Marvel shows. Amazing as Tommy. He sounds just like him. I had to look up if it was actually him, if they got the video game actor to come and be Tommy, because he sounds spot on. He nailed the essence, I felt like, and I feel like they're gonna go more into Tommy. Already they're changing his and Joel's dynamic. As we get along, we have this whole intro bit, you know, Sarah is getting ready for Joel's birthday. She's gonna go buy that watch. You got the Adlers who, you know, as soon as I saw little old lady in a wheelchair, I'm like, she's gonna be the first infected we see. Spoiler alert, that pretty much ended true. There's that exchange. Sarah then goes off on her own for the day, pretty much. She goes to school. Absolutely fucking wild to see George W. Bush in a Last of Us IP, I gotta say. Really, it could have been any president, but Bush 2 in particular, it was just no qualms. I'm just bringing it up. It was really weird. I wasn't expecting it. Sarah goes on about her day, leaves school, goes to the pawn shop. There's stuff going on in the town. The pawn shop closes early. She does get the watch, and then she goes to the Adler's place, and there's that really, you know, really good scene, creepy as hell, of like I think her name is Connie is the one who takes care of the old lady. But the old lady's like like doing clicker shit, like in the chair. But what really I loved was, I don't know how they got that dog to act so good, but that dog is sitting and looking at her just with this terrified expression. I felt what the dog was feeling. The juxtaposition of Connie, who is like this sweet but like kind of judgmental Southern Christian lady type, nice enough, but some of the things she says are just rough. And then of course, in just a few minutes time, I am crushed. I'm heartbroken because poor Mr. Adler and Connie are getting eviscerated by this little old lady. It's rough to see. You know, it showed, I think, a lot of the humanity that Sarah encompasses that Joel will then lose. That even though these people are so fundamentally different, like you're kind of fighting with your own daughter on who has to spend time with them. You are heartbroken all the same to see these people gone, these staples maybe of your life gone, and in such a violent, grisly way. Here's where things kind of change. Tommy is kind of shown to be a wild card right off the bat. He's been in jail a few times. He's gone to jail now. Obviously, this is someone turning, and he beat the hell out of them because they were attacking the waitress. Joel's got to go bail him out. Sarah, of course, wakes up in the middle of the night, and shit has hit the fan. There are explosions going off in the city. Here is where it kind of really becomes that part of the Last of Us game where you first start playing. It really felt like that. It's where a lot of the beats started to kind of line up with where I was expecting them to. but not 20 minutes in. I expected that, within the first 5 minutes. It's good. I like it here because we built things up a little more. Whereas with the game where you're in the shoes of Sarah directly, you're feeling that right off the bat because you're all alone. I do like the beat, the even to the dialogue. The dialogue beats verbatim, like where she said, "Drugs, I sell hardcore drugs." That's a cute line. It would be kind of weird without that line. They play with that throughout the episode. I'll bring up at least one other instance later. It is a little too early to say, but I wonder if they're going to limit that to Sarah and Ellie's characters. Just kind of really reinforce that father-daughter dynamic and that daughter role in Joel's life by having those cornerstones of the dialogue from the game that encompass the themes of the story of Last of Us. Really grisly scene. She's the old lady is biting like here on Connie, and she's like coming out with a mouthful of hair. Really gross stuff. She's still like twitching on the ground. It is really quite grisly. I didn't fully expect to see something quite on that scale. First thing, I kind of expected more of what they do in a second, where the other neighbor, she's looking out the back of the truck and she sees Mr. Adler and Connie like tackle her and just start eating her. A little more of that where they're playing again with, in the video game, you're Sarah in the truck, able to look around out all the vantage points. And as much as I love the interactivity of that segment of the game, I loved having the TV show just point me to what's important, because every time I play that, I feel like I look away, or I look at the wrong part of the screen when something's going on behind me. And here I kind of have that responsibility just taken off my hands a little bit. I like them both for what they are, but it was a high point. But even still, a lot of that is still the same. Like, they find the father and the family, and Joel says, "We got a kid too, we got to keep going, like we are not fucking stopping for these people." That was a one-to-one pretty much. Even when they come to the highway and they see the cops darting by, that was a one-to-one. The barn, there's a barn that you drive by in the game, and then they drive by it here that's just up in flames, and it's their friend's place, and a plane comes down and sends something, the fuselage or a piece of the wing, I'm not really sure, the engine maybe, into the building, and then it slams into the truck. They get tipped over, and then we're kind of there at that point. That's the car wreck. Poor Sarah has injured her ankle. They get split up from Tommy way earlier, so they're kind of doing the run stretch by themselves, but since you're not playing it, they cut that down a little bit. Could have used a little more, I will say. I think they could have gone the game's direction and had them running through the city a little more before they encounter the soldier. But I mean, once they find the soldier, it is as gut-wrenching as it ever is. It's where I came around to Pedro Pascal as Joel. Tommy with the rifle was cool. I did kind of miss, it was cold as fuck in the game where he comes up with the pistol and pops the guy. Fuck that soldier. I don't really have to say too much here. Sarah is shot and killed as she was in the game. This is another one-to-one scene, pretty much, and it is devastating. But it is as devastating as ever to see Sarah die, to see that huge chunk of Joel die with her. Pedro really sells it here. It felt like The Last of Us. I mean, I don't know how else to describe it. This was the point where any doubts kind of washed away. I was still keeping my eye out as we move into the post-apocalyptic side. Now we're 20 years later, we're kind of in the present, 2023, a little bit in the future, if you will. Curious where it's going to go from here, and of course it does take new directions. We open up with this kid. At first, I wrongly assumed it was Ellie. It was a young Ellie. Unfortunately, the kid is bitten. And in my mind, I saw the red, but at this point in the show, I had to wonder, are they going to take a different direction? I don't know what that means. Does that mean positive? Does that mean negative? I had an inkling it meant negative, But then they gave him a dose of something. I was like, okay, maybe it's penicillin. No, no, the kid does end up dying, obviously, and I felt a little foolish for having that hope. I think that was thrown in for people like me who have played the game, and throw in some relearning of the rules without it feeling like a tutorial. I really liked that, as much as you don't like seeing kids die or get infected by a fucking fungus zombie, but it was an interesting way to frame some of the stuff, some of the rules. I also wondered if they were playing with us, if they were really making us think that that might have been Ellie, and then the guard was Marlene. For a second, I thought that, until, it quickly becomes apparent. We're not doing another time skip, like, this is it. And Joel obviously burns the body. There's that really, really emotional scene where I don't, is that Tess? I really can't tell when she's got the thing on. I don't think it actually is, though. It's some lady who cannot burn the body, though. And Joel does it mercilessly. He just picks it up, tosses it in like it's nothing, and combined with, the first zombie scene in the Adler's home earlier, this was really grisly to me. You don't really see anything like that in the game, I have to say. You see him toss the body in the fire, and then it smash cuts to him scooping up the ash from all of these dead people, these dead infected people that they've just burned, and mercilessly scooping it into some buckets for, and they get paid for that. The soldiers are sitting on their asses with their hands on their guns, waiting for something to happen, waiting for someone to kill, waiting to get their nut, as you see in the next scene where with the young guard doing business with Joel, who is kind of an important character for this first episode. And the people have to do everything, and they get paid pennies and nickels. Hence why Joel and Tess have to participate in this kind of underworld aspect of the Boston QZ. They're kind of two tough guys, though. Tess is a tough guy, but she's also got the brains. And then Joel is like, he doesn't really, he has brains, but he's not putting them into this because he's dead. He is, for the most part, internally dead. He comes in with that hardcore muscle, though. I really liked, I'm jumping ahead a little bit now, but I really like Tess's introduction in Robert's den, where she's been beaten by his men, and he is terrified. He is terrified of what Joel is going to do to him. That's one of the aspects that's not one-to-one. They flip that. Finishing up on that scene, though, Joel obviously does some illicit dealings with some of the Phaedra guards. This young kid tells him, stay inside the next few days, like some big shit is kind of going down, we're expecting some shit. You hook me up, and I'll kind of keep you safe. But he is trying to fuck Joel over a little bit, because he's, he seems like someone from 2023, if nothing had happened, who belongs to the douchiest frat on campus. He seems like a really entitled little stain of cum on the fucking ground. Frankly, I didn't like him. I anticipated him biting the dust by the end, but we'll get to that in a bit. Tess's introduction with Robert, back to that. Kind of talked about that already. So all of a sudden there's a huge explosion, and that's Phaedra coming in. They're flushing out some fireflies from this area. Shit goes really bad, and Tess gets beaten again by the Phaedra guards. We've got Ellie, and she is being held by some group. It's a little ambiguous at the time who she's being held by. Clearly held against her will, clearly been there a while. She is lying, though. She's got the I think it's their infection test to make sure she can do all of the mental and physical things, like holding her hand out still, counting to 10 slowly. It was interesting to see those procedures. I like that scene a lot. I liked that addition a lot. Also, definitely gives her a little bit more of a protagonist status alongside Joel that in the game we don't really see until Winter. Joel is trying to get a hold of Tommy, to no luck. In the game, they have not wanted, they've split off. Tommy was last known to be in the Fireflies, but of course you find out he isn't. I assume that's all going to be played up a little differently here. I feel like they are making it seem more like Tommy just left. What's really most interesting to me is that Joel is desperately looking for him. There is this aspect of Joel that actually is still alive in this TV show adaptation in Tommy. You know, he is this last family, this last tie that Joel has. And I like that he's fighting for it. It's the last thing he's able to fight for until Ellie comes into his life. I gotta wonder if there's some dynamic of Tommy being the one to kill the soldier that killed Sarah that played into that, just giving how quickly he fell into the parallels of the young kid at the end with the soldier who kills Sarah. But either way, he is clearly regretful of how things were left between him and Tommy, desperately trying to get back in touch with him, to no avail. I'd have to scrub a little hard through this episode or just rewatch the whole thing to understand how long it's been. I believe it's been years, like in the game. I believe it's been years. Joel kind of go on a bender at home. He's really upset. He gets a load on and luckily just passes out. He doesn't really do much with it. Tess comes back, and I think that they are an item in this. I think, they're cuddling in bed. Maybe that's just a callback to when they might have still been an item. Maybe they'll always kind of be an item. And I think that's most right, is that they'll always kind of be an item, but they're both fundamentally too changed by the apocalypse and the disease to be that vulnerable or able to be in a functioning relationship again. Yet he takes one look at her face the next morning when he's fine, and you see why Robert's scared. I see why Robert's scared instantly. You know, he's so tender, taking care of Tess. And again, this was a point where Pedro Pascal, I was already won over with Sarah's death scene, but now I'm like not one tier above. I'm like 5 tiers above the praise I was just at, because he takes that time to be tender with her. But it's still game on. It's still game on. And it's not just because of her. He does need the battery for the truck to go out and try to find Tommy himself. That is the cornerstone of why he's doing this. Also, interestingly, why Tess is doing this, why Tess is even dealing with Robert, doing any business negotiations with Robert. It is for Joel, it is for Tommy. We are back where Ellie is being held. It is revealed to be the Fireflies. We get introduced to Marlene. They're kind of reeling from that last attack by Phaedra. They've been moving from place to place around the Boston QZ. They obviously have places all over the country, but they're all kind of getting hit by that, either by the infection, by Phaedra, or, just by infighting even. And here is no different. They're kind of on their last legs. They have this new asset. They have this new thing in Ellie. And what exactly is she? She's special. For those of us that have played the game, we know why already. It's really not going to come as a surprise. But for those that haven't, they still hold that off until the end. You're still wondering, why is this girl so special? I haven't watched any of the trailers for this, so I don't know if those spoil that. I wouldn't blame them, I guess, if they did, but if it's something they held off on revealing, that she is immune to the virus, could be really cool. Everybody's kind of in, it's kind of a, like, everybody's in motion. Marlene comes and meets Ellie for the first time. Of course, they have history, more Marlene. I keep wanting to call her Maureen. Marlene and Ellie's parents have a bit of history. They were, they don't say too much to what extent in this episode. The section of Joel and Tess heading through kind of the underbelly of the town and such. They're finding the clicker that's fully transformed, and he's just turned into like a fungi patch plastered to the wall. He's down and out. It hasn't been too long since she's been through here before, and he wasn't there. Or is the fungi evolving? Is it changing to adapt to the human's resilience after so much time? Maybe it anticipated finishing the human race off by now, but these quarantine zones and the human spirit that is living on despite this awful zombie-inducing phenomenon, is it expanding? I think that's what at least I was brought to wonder when I saw that. Correct me if I'm wrong. I saw a lot about this, that spores aren't going to be a danger in the show. Um, maybe they're just taking the fungi in a different direction. There is something to taking the spores out. I will say I feel like that is more effective in a video game, but you have to wonder, was it that effective of a danger in The Last of Us, because they would put their gas masks on automatically. It wasn't like in Metro where you really have to keep up with that. You have to put the gas mask on, but be careful. You better stay well stocked up, or at least not stay out of the noxious radiation that you're trying not to breathe in, or else you're gonna run out of gas mask. I'm a little on the fence about taking the spores out ultimately, but if it's to take the fungi in a different direction, will like that. I would like that a lot. I'd be very curious. It's already kind of implied with Ellie being immune already. Joel and Ellie stumble upon. I was a little confused about this at first. It's the Firefly hideout that Robert has raided, and he was doing that to get the battery back for Tess. But it failed, obviously. Him and all his men are dead. A lot of the Fireflies died in the attack as well. It really just kind of achieved doing nothing but getting Phaedra on their ass. Joel and Tess stumble upon Marlene and Ellie and this other lady and it's lucky for Marlene, it's lucky for Ellie, though she doesn't realize it in the moment, but it's really unlucky for Joel and Tess. They were just looking to find Robert. They, one, didn't know that he was dealing with the Fireflies. Two, didn't know that he was going to take this action and fail like a damn idiot. And three, they didn't expect to run into Phaedra like this. Things are amping up, and on top of all that, Marlene is terribly wounded and tells them, hey, I can't do what I was just about to do, so you guys got to smuggle this girl out of here. We know why that's just awful to Joel. I think Tess can clue in on that too. She's definitely a little more focused on the money, a little bit more like, let's just get over it. It's not your daughter, so let's just move on. We'll get this job done. That's another one-to-one to the game. That's how this mission is first introduced to you. And you play an hour long, and so all of a sudden you're saying, oh, I have about 12 more hours in this game, don't I? This is not just going to be get in, get out, wipe your hands off, we got the money, we got the truck battery. Combined with, Ellie, even if you take out the father-daughter issues that Joel has, she's a very feisty person, and she doesn't like Joel or Tess. She really doesn't at first. She's suspicious, and that's pretty much the same in the game, but I feel like she grows to trust them slower in the show, even though she still will by the end of the episode. There's still a lot of distrust, especially as Joel is kicking her precious prized knife away. She really didn't like that. They are taken to a hideout. She doesn't like being holed up in their place. She looks at their codes, and she doesn't like how Joel tells her to stop looking at the codes, which she does end up cracking, with the wake me up before you go. That is another of those total one-to-one dialogue points where she walks past Joel as he's laying down for a nap, and she says, your watch is broken. And another moment where really, that was the only moment, as much as I like Pedro Pascal as Joel and this rendition of Joel, that was the one moment where I looked at Pedro Pascal and I was like, oh, there's Joel from the video game. That look he gives is the exact same. And I'm not saying that that's precisely what the show needs to go for, is give me Joel from the video game. But for that moment, it was there. It felt like maybe Pedro Pascal studied that scene on YouTube or something, because it was exactly the same. It wasn't angry, it wasn't ready to burst, it wasn't even sad. It was just a further level of defeat and almost humiliation from this young girl who has automatically become a stand-in for what he's lost, whether he knows it or not. Is not talking about the watch. The watch is a stand-in for Joel himself, his heart. And even though that seems pretty cliche, I love the way it's done here because it's not readily apparent like that. It stood out to me like that because I played the game many times. I get the significance of that line, but for a first-time viewer, especially given Bella Ramsey's delivery of that line, which I have not praised her enough yet. Let me say she did a fantastic job. Fantastic job as Ellie in this episode. Her delivery of that line is harsh. She doesn't understand the context behind what she's saying, and it is harsh, and it is something you almost expect him to get angry about. He gets angry when she cracks the code, and it kind of feels like that's, his anger from her comment about the watch coming out. Yes. But in that moment, he's defeated, and he decides, yeah, I'm going to take that nap. And we won't see that pan out until the end of this season. And it's still going to not be good. I won't say anything for anyone who doesn't know the story, but I'll let you know right now. This is not a feel-good apocalypse story. This isn't something that we're gonna make the turnaround at some point. Yes, there are plot turnarounds. Yes, there are wins. Yes, there is thematic conclusion and catharsis. It's The Last of Us. And The Last of Us itself isn't done, so maybe there's still time for that to be proven wrong. But for the first iteration of The Last of Us, just be ready for tragedy. That's all. Marlene is ultimately grateful. Obviously she does have this history with Joel and Tess enough to trust them to do this. Not if, she wasn't injured. They're far from her first choice, even while she is injured. But at the same time, they are not bad people, I think. And they're not. They're not great people where they are right now. But people have a heart. People have a core that is the same to Marlene, and obviously their core is something that she can align with. That she is able to trust Ellie to them when she knows the secret about Ellie. The audience still doesn't. Maybe they can probably infer at this point, given that she was chained up. Well, night falls, and Tess returns, and it's time to go. Phaedra is doing their weird shit, so they gotta be extra careful. The guard earlier warned them, stay inside the next few days. Like, don't fucking do crazy shit. For real. They were gonna heed his advice. This came up, the pay is too good, they need the battery, they're gonna send it. Well, it's really fun to see Ellie at least just ecstatic to be outside, That's a win. That's one of those wins I mentioned. And the smile that she has when she says, I'm actually outside, you gotta think. She is younger than the time skip we've just experienced. Joel has frozen since Sarah died. And this is the first moment where he is all of a sudden thrown back into the point of fatherhood that he was when she left. Okay? When Sarah left, when Sarah died. And now he has to experience with her all of these different things that they once took for granted. That Sarah, if she were still alive, would probably have a deep appreciation for, given the quarantine zone limits and everything like that. How have I been going 42 minutes? We are carrying on with Joel in that we're seeing all the new ways in which a child is expected to grow up in this world. I think we would obviously take for granted. And all of a sudden we run into Captain Douchebag. He's taking a leak. They try to slip past him, but he ultimately hears them, even over the rain, which Joel could potentially get him in a lot of trouble for dealing with, and buying drugs and stuff like that. But, he said, I warned you, get on your knees, this is it. They oblige him, at Tessa's request. She's very much the leader. Don't forget that. She very much is the leader of this dynamic. Even though Joel is taking the lead with this guy since he's his contact, she is like, it's not working. Your brains are not pulling through now. Let's just give it up. Like, we are done. But then the audience learns the secret. Ellie is infected. He is ready to gun them all down. And Joel does the only thing he can. Instinct takes over. His primal urges that were instilled in him the moment Sarah was born come out, and he steps in between Ellie and that gun, pleading, let's make a deal. Come on. You don't have to do this. Let us go. I'm not going to tell anyone about your shit. You don't have to tell anybody about ours. You can go on doing business when I get back. Even though Tess herself, in just a few moments, kind of begins to back out. She freaks out. Joel flies into a rage. Paralleled, all of a sudden, sent back to that moment he lost one daughter who he had known for 13 years. And this girl that he is, speaking somewhat colloquially, known for 13 hours, he all of a sudden flies into dad mode. And if you watch the end of the episode, the creators even say, there's that contrast between Sarah and Ellie, that Sarah sees her father be violent with the zombies, and she is horrified. Can't really look at her father the same way in that moment. She does eventually. The shock wears off. She knows he was just protecting her. But Ellie, immediately, it looks like catharsis for her to see someone defend her in such a way. Maybe a male figure. Maybe she hasn't had that. She had Riley. She had her parents, maybe. Maybe it is just good to have that parental figure. Either way, it's that supportive, older figure protecting the younger who has not frequently been protected, even by the Fireflies, who were like kind of gung-ho about saying, we'll protect you. They had her chained up for days on end, even though she really made no change of becoming infected. Sure, she was reading infected. Sure, she was bitten. For a while, Marlene knew. Marlene knew as soon as she's on the case. She was like, nah, this girl's the future. That's why she trusts them so much, Joel and Tess. Tess freaks out, of course, once she sees the test. But there's more important things right now. That wound is really old. I think they both realize that. That wound is really old. And they get out of there. Another 1-to-1. The city looks almost exactly the same. I really love that shot. His music is playing over the radio. That's Bill and Frank. We're going to get to assumedly see Frank, maybe not. And they are signaling, bad things are coming. They're playing 80s music. Probably what Phaedra and Captain Douchebag were talking about, that something is on its way. Stay inside the next few days. Are we getting into like Walking Dead horde stuff? I kind of hope not. Part of me is wondering if clickers are going to be this new threat, that it's something that they're not super familiar with yet. They mostly had the runners and the lurkers or whatnot, but clickers they haven't really seen yet. Could be interesting. I'm not sure how I'll feel about the show taking standards from the game and using them as level ups for the show. It would personally make me feel like the threat is, I suppose, being hammed up a bit. I would have more of a problem with it being the spores, using the spores as a later level up, like into season 2 or whatnot. I don't know. We'll have to see what happens. Obviously I'm not ruling anything out. I give this episode an A++. It was fucking awesome. Great pilot. I recommend you all go watch it. Even if you just wanted to watch this or a video like this and see what other people are saying, go give it a shot yourself. We got 7 more episodes for you to get caught up on. This is an extra long episode. It's really like a movie, so buckle up, pop some popcorn, what have you. It is a lot like the game, if you're wondering that. It's also very different, which are the aspects so far I'm liking the best. The aspects of it being different, of us getting scenes fleshed out, like the aspects of quarantine zone life, the aspects of Ellie being a protagonist right off the start. I'm liking that so far. and I hope we only continue with that. Next episode, we're going to go through the city, undoubtedly. I think we're going to get up to... Spoiler warning right here. If you've watched the video up till now and you don't want any even hints of spoilers for what comes next in the story, go ahead and bounce. I'm going to do a little bit of speculation. I think we're going to get into Tess's death next episode. You know, they're still running from Phaedra. They're running from the clickers and stuff that have overrun the city. And then that'll be kind of the end of the trio. We'll get into the Joel and Ellie intensive part of the story, which lasts the rest of the story. Maybe we'll get a little further. Maybe we'll meet Bill and Frank. I feel like, you know, we'll have enough to do with just maybe focusing on Tess before she dies. And, you know, there's even a lot to do there. There are the skyscrapers, the sewer systems, and the museum, and then the rooftops that we have to get through before we get to the Capitol building. So that's a lot of stuff for the trio to get through before Tess's death. I think next episode would be really good if they focused on that. Till next Sunday, though, right, guys? Thank you so much. I'm hoping to get that One Piece script out. I'm aiming for tomorrow, Wednesday. We will see, of course. You know, things are always subject to change. At the least, it will be available when 1072 is available on TCB or whatever scan translations you all read. Guys, thank you so much for joining. Hope to see you next time or for the next One Piece video. And just take care. Stay safe out there.